You're not putting on a collared shirt?
No.
I put on a collared shirt for this.
I'm just trying different shit.
J6. J6ers, first thing. First thing. Absolutely. All of them pardoned, all of them forgiven.
Yeah, that's probably a given, yeah.
A large percentage of the nation is feeling down about this election.
It's the end of time, and it's the second coming of the devil. It's the end of time again, is what we're seeing in the news.
Fight foreign wars that don't help America while also being told that they're a bad person for being white or male or cisgendered or whatever else. Of course you're going to drive down recruiting.
And I think if things are tough for everybody. Really take for granted that younger folks are going to be liberal.
Women are women, all right? Like, that's all there is to it.
Martial law is the last resort.
But I think Democrats obviously have a great opportunity to win back the House.
Because if they bomb, then we as Democrats can run on that very easily when the midterms hit.
I think that the policies for all the illegal immigration need to be put into place. At least get started on day one.
Fire anyone who had anything to do with Kabul. Officers. Fire them. Pull the stars off their fucking chest if you have to. I don't give a fuck what you do. Get rid of these people.
You got anything else to say?
No, man. I don't want you to shit yourself on camera.
Us, party people, like that's what we need to focus on. We do not need to target the Democrats. It's a waste of time. It's bullshit. Don't do that. Yes, justified. Yes, they came after him. Yes, correct. Very much so. And I know. Yes, I know. But come on, guys, we got to move forward. All right, we got to worry about bigger shit. Don't internal fighting. That's how we dissolve as a country.
Hi, everybody. This is John back from Real Veteran News. I'm here bringing you the 2024 post-election special where we're going to go back and talk about what we think after the election. The most important questions I want to get answered by my veteran friends for this show is, what does Trump do now that the political situation for him has changed, obviously? What does Trump and the Republicans mean for the military? What changes are going to happen for the military? And how do the Democrats come back and try to claw back some power in D.C. in 2026? And then also how the Republicans try to prevent that, political strategy-wise. We just need a little time after the election, let the dust settle a little bit, and for everyone to kind of get their thoughts and everything together. But now I think it's time to put this together so we can all move on in this new era here.
I thought it was pretty expected that Trump would win. As I mentioned in the lead up, I mean, the guy got shot in the air. He pretty much gives him a free pass to the election. Plus, Kamala Harris was like one of the most unlikable candidates ever. So, yeah, where I was wrong is I actually expected there to be some Democrat violence, and there hasn't been. So good for them. And they have a really good chance to show class and upstage the Republicans. Like when the election is certified, if Kamala Harris does that peacefully, then they can always point back to January 6th and be like, look at you guys. Y'all are bitches compared to us. I just think that that's like a good chance for the Democrats to show class.
Well, I think no matter how you feel about Trump, you can't deny he's a polarizing figure. And so a large percentage of the nation is feeling down about this election. I think that would have happened no matter what direction the election goes. You know, you're going to have a large percentage of the nation feeling kind of bad about it. I really, really hope Trump was telling the truth, that he has nothing to do with Project 2025. We know that sometimes politicians say stuff on campaigns to get elected. You know, he needed more than just MAGA voters to win. I think Christian nationalism is we're not a theocracy. We don't need Christian nationalism as a nation. I can deal with his economic policies. You know, we can correct those if they don't work. But what I think putting the Christian nationalist agenda of Project 2025, I really hope he rejects that.
Pre-election special, post-election now. We know the results. How are you guys feeling?
We got our country back.
Okay.
It's a long road.
So,
Yeah, it feels great too.
okay, y'all having fun. The cats are all excited and shit.
One of them. The cat lady. And I support Trump.
What should Trump do? What are the most important things for Trump to do once he becomes president in January?
J6. J6ers, first thing. First thing. Absolutely. All of them pardoned, all of them forgiven.
Yeah, that's probably a given. Yeah.
He's also said he's going to have Ukraine and Israel resolved. I think it was both Ukraine and Israel are going to be resolved before he even gets into office. So those were some of the promises that he made. We'll see.
So first thoughts was just, like pretty much everyone else. Wow. Okay. Another red wave that just went through there. We were expecting that they usually underpoll Republicans by 3 to 4%. And so that's what they thought the same thing was going to happen last time. So they tried to account that for the margin of error, blew them out of the water. And it's just kind of funny. I voted for him for the first time. Past 2 times I did not, just because I wasn't a big fan of him. And it's great. I'm glad he's in office now. And, I can't wait for big things to happen. Most importantly, though, the things that will happen is with the personnel of the administration that will actually be able to execute this. So we could probably get onto that next convo, John, but just excited that, I was very, very surprised about the election, and hopefully we can hit the ground running and be productive moving forward.
All right, back with Doug. How's your day been? You fired up the Mad Max yet, or what?
No. I'm a little relieved. I'm not going to say I'm some sort of like overjoyed. I'm happy that the powers that be or the masses are relatively calm right now, other than the general angst on social media. I mean, you got to love the crying.
Well, what's happening? I don't use social media. What's happening on social media?
I think post-Hillary election redo. People crying because they were so sure that their candidate that Kamala was going to win. And then it was just like a shock to them.
Yeah, because the media was gaslighting them because they didn't want them to bail. Because if they were like, yeah, she's behind, then she's definitely going to lose. Like the only chance they had was like tricking these people into thinking she had a chance, which she never had a chance.
No, you're absolutely right. And I would say that is why the media, well, I should say the old school media. I mean, it's really hard to find genuine information anymore. I'm not even going to call it news because that's total bullshit.
I'm not honestly that surprised by the election results for the mere reason that I'd criticized the Harris-Walz campaign heavily on conservative media as a Democrat, but it was fair criticism because they didn't even put a policy tab on their website until about 3 or 4 weeks before the election. And the platitudes of joy and love and all that were great, but we needed more substance. And they needed to counteract some of the untruths that were being told about them by the opposition, and they just didn't do it. Faith, I'd hope. I was encouraged by the rallies because she really was packing out those rallies. But I started to get concerned as the campaign grew older because a lot of my friends that had gone to the first rally here in Atlanta went to the second, third, and fourth rallies. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know if these rallies are attracting new people. I'm worried that we're not attracting new voters because, like I said in a previous thing, 46.3% of registered voters sat out 2016. And that's what I was worried would happen again. And that's what the numbers showed. She lost by a small amount, but in a bunch of states. So it added up to a pretty bad electoral college shellacking. But I can't say that I was all that surprised. The follow-on questions of what do we do with it now and where do we go from here?
First, surprised when I went to bed that evening. The news was still back and forth, 50-50, swing states, who knows. I woke up at about 2 or 3, picked up my phone, looked at it, and headline was Trump wins election. I was surprised. One, that it was that quick and that decisive. Well, I guess that'd be 2. One, it was that quick, and 2, it was that decisive. I mean, the electoral and the popular vote with that percentage of victory was pretty surprising.
So the transition period right now is complex. If you look back to 2016, there wasn't a peaceful transfer of power. There was a resistance put in place by the Obama administration. A lot of rhinos were put into the cabinet because Trump simply didn't know any better than not to hire some of these neocons. I think he needs to be very careful of who he puts in his cabinet. I don't know if you're a Dune fan or not, but when they took over Arrakis, there were booby traps left everywhere. I think you're going to see all sorts of that. I think policies are going to be undermined by bureaucrats. I think they're going to try to make his presidency unsuccessful, and they're going to resist him in every way. So he needs to be on the lookout for that. I think he needs to make simple policy rules that can fit on 1 or 2 pages, not 500 or 1,000-page bills that have stuff buried in them. It needs to have a very clear border policy put out immediately, both executive order, and then with his control of both the House and the Senate, they need to legislate and get it on the books of what long-term going forward, how we're going to do it. I would like to see E-Verify come in to where you just simply can't work at all. If you violate E-Verify, you get deported. And if you're a business that violates E-Verify, you get fined $10,000 or 1% of your gross, whichever is higher.
Obviously, I'm a little bit disheartened. I think it played out in one of the expected outcomes. Polling was really close and it could have gone either way. And in terms of, what happened, that's sort of exactly what occurred. We didn't have a huge landslide in terms of the popular vote, but there was a significant win on the Electoral College side, taking all the battleground states. And that's something. I think it says something about where folks are. I think it's a little early for anybody to say that they're sure about what exactly happened and why it happened, but it feels like this is in so many ways like, it's the economy stupid. I think we talked about that last time, you and I. That matters. It matters to people a lot. I think it's tough because while we dealt with tremendous inflation for a while, and I think Biden did a good job of bringing that down to normal levels, prices are still really high and people feel that. And it's hard to get somebody to care about something else when they can barely afford to put food on the table. My gut feeling, perhaps folks underestimated how much pain working level folks were experiencing with that and what that meant to them. And they're willing to do anything. And you've got Donald Trump there and they saw what he did before and they feel like it was better before COVID under him. Whether that's a reality or not is not relevant. And so I think we had, maybe Democrats not selling the situation as it is the way that it is. It's hard to tell somebody things are better when it just doesn't feel better. And numbers say one thing, but the truth for folks, is something else.
What I was going to say before is I was a little disheartened today by the response from the left as far as there was no concession speech. You can't have everybody going, oh, we're going to fight on like we're some fucking rebel army. You can say you want unity, but if your speech is, hey, I concur that this person was elected over me, but we're going to do everything in our power and the rebellion stops now to stop every one of the policies. I mean,
she was probably devastated. I mean, the idea that she's going to talk to the whole country.
She took a whole 24 hours off, dude.
2 a.m.
No.
Well, someone had to write her speech for her, obviously. I mean, come on.
Well, she did it at 4 p.m. Eastern today. She was incognito the whole time. She never went to her.
These people are so depressed. Like, they're trying to keep it together.
And I give a fuck why?
I mean,
what? Don't you be an excuse maker for them. Poor babies.
But the deportation thing, I actually agree with. I think anchor babies have been, and like tourism births have been a huge problem for decades. And I'm curious as to how far back he will go in deporting people. Because like if somebody was born in America, they're 10 years old. I mean, I wonder if he'll deport that person and their whole family. I personally think that if they found a way to manipulate the law and circumvent the law to get here in the first place, then I'm okay with it.
If he focuses on what he said he's going to focus on, the first thing is going to be the economy. That's, I think, what the American people put him in office to focus on, is fixing our economy, finding ways to bring down the cost of life. Probably after that is fixing the world. Good luck with that one. I don't know that dealing with immigration should be as high on the agenda as maybe most people would say. That one may actually fix itself if we give it a little bit of time. It definitely needs to happen. If you're a criminal in this country, which means if you came here illegally, you need to face a crossroads. Either you go back or you start the process to live here legally.
All right. Well, what do you think their priorities should be?
Priorities number one, the wars. I think Ukraine and the Israeli war we need to try to get that resolved as quickly as possible. How that happens and when that happens and how much what one would consider territory loss or concession on the Russian side or Ukraine. There's a lot of negotiations going with that, but that 500,000 bros have been smoked already. We need to address that. Second one is the war. Third one, the economy. I think we need to continue the 25, the tax cuts that will expire in 25 that we have in here, and to continue to reform the tax cuts that we have for not only for businesses, which is a good thing, but also individuals, which hopefully JD Vance will to try to bring some of that swag there.
And quite frankly, Donald Trump did a good job of pushing into that younger male demographic, who is typically not one that comes out and votes, but moved, just enough in his direction that could be what did it. And he's got folks like Elon Musk. He's got folks like Joe Rogan who were there and in at least some senses backing him. And those are folks that really speak to that group. They speak to a lot of groups, frankly, but I think a lot of that demographic is sort of enchanted by the Rogan Musk ideal. That's where we are.
What do you think, Josie? What do you think's important?
Well, immigration, wall, deportation, everything related to the southern border.
Who's getting deported? Who gets to stay?
I think that the policies for all the illegal immigration need to be put into place. At least get started on day one.
He's got a lot of stuff to do. What else is important here?
The repercussions of the COVID, the creation and the vaccine and the forced mandates and the people that suffered from forced inoculations. And they need to be held accountable for it 100%. I thought it was very telling. There were 5 big pharma CEOs meeting right away, and it seemed to be, I don't remember, I think it was New York Times. It seemed to be we need to get this meeting done right now. I thought that was pretty interesting. Not trying to spread any misinformation, but I did see it. It looked like it was New York Times to me. So,
what did you think about the young people voting for Trump?
I made a really long Facebook post about this and I detailed all of the things that Trump promised on the campaign trail. And if you take him at his word, why wouldn't people vote for him? If he says that he's going to lower the national deficit while at the same time increasing military spending, I'd love to see how that's done. If he says that he's going to not tax Social Security income, I'd love to see how that's done while at the same time keeping Social Security. So a lot of those things, no tax on tips. There were so many promises that made, and I want to hold him to account. I want to believe. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But if you're a young person and you're looking at all this litany, this list of, I want to say like 50 some odd electoral campaign promises that he made, it looks great.
I'm really looking forward to him hiring Ron Paul to clean up the Fed or maybe end the Fed. I don't necessarily think the Federal Reserve needs to be ended, but I'm curious to see how quickly Donald Trump will lower interest rates, because right now our targeted federal funds, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it needs to be below zero. Any interest rate like that just drives up the price of investing in domestic business, and it'll be the fastest way to make it so that investors can invest in America again.
That's pretty much it. We can get in. What should Trump do in his first days?
Yeah.
God, he's got a shit ton to do. The basic one is his priority of promises that he made and ran on. I mean, it's been a long time since any candidate makes all these fucking pie-in-the-sky promises to get votes, and then it magically seems to get deferred by something else, and they're never delivered on. So, honestly, I think if he just delivers on what he says.
A federal law on election policy and require an ID to vote in all 50 states. Make one-day voting, make it a national holiday. Mail-in ballots should be people that are in the nursing home or deployed to war, and only that. Make it to where those are secure, like you have to put a thumbprint and ink on the document when you mail it in. I think this would decrease voter fraud. But
the people that are working here are trying to do the right thing, that have a job, that pay taxes, that do all that. Find a way to help them stay here legally. But those that are here breaking the law, committing acts of violence against Americans, got to go. I mean, you're on the fast thing smoking to wherever you came from.
Right. And I think if things are tough for everybody. You can't necessarily take for granted that younger folks are going to be liberal.
Right now, we've talked so much smack for 20, 30 years. We have control of both branches, both houses, and all 3 branches. We need to get the work done in 2 years. There's a chance we lose the House or the Senate at the midterm, so they need to have very thoughtful, clear legislation passed rapidly. We need to get back to where we were pre-COVID as far as the health of the economy.
I think we deserve to lose this one because we kept them out from having an open primary. We switched horsemen 3 months before the freaking election day. And the message for half of these 6 weeks was just joy. And there wasn't any policy until the last 3 weeks.
One of the first things that Donald Trump needs to do is election law modification requiring voter ID, number one, but some sort of a change to how elections, at least federal elections, are done to make sure that election integrity is not violated in the future.
I've been asking my friends, what should Trump do with the government? He can't do anything in the government until he removes these bureaucrats and all of these people that are just going to slow everything down and stop him at every turn. I mean, absolute first thing he has to do is go in there and just off with their heads and get these people the fuck out of there.
And then last but not least, the last two things, China and in immigration. Obviously, we need to make sure that we're more resilient in that area. And I think a lot of people kind of tentatively agree with that. For immigration, where folks kind of tend to go back and forth. When it comes to mass deportation, we talked about this before, John. We did this before in the 1950s. It was called Operation Wetback. It's not looked kindly on from how we kind of see it now. We kind of almost seen it not as similar to the internment camps to do with the Japanese, but we look at it the kind of way. So when we're talking about how if we're going to do mass deportations here and how we're handling immigrants, deportations do need to happen. The criminals, the people who came in here unvetted, Venezuela just let them all their jails and just like, go ahead, flood the country. We don't care. We need to actually do deportation to a certain scale. What that is and how we implement that with the families, how do we do that correctly, humanely, and how do we make sure that we don't affect, because 8 million people in the economy now, that they're contributing to the GDP, they're paying taxes. Yes, we are also using some of our social services, they're not contributing to other events, and we could talk about that. But moving forward, soft border wall, lots of drones, lots of technology. A hard wall will never really work. They'll just dig over it or go over it. It'll just be a waste of resources. Soft wall, much more effective. Targeted deportations, as well as the most important part, we need to hire 1,000 immigrant judges. The main reason why we're in this clusterfuck now is that there's a huge backlog of whenever they try to claim asylum to the time they actually become a citizen, they go to court. They say, all right, cool, come back in 5 to 7 years. What are you doing in 5 to 7 years, right? Like, fuck no, I'm not coming back. All right, so if you expedite the processing of that, hire 1,000 immigrant judges and do it and selectively and screen these people, I think we can get ourselves out of this situation and fundamentally address the immigration. We have an opportunity now to do that. Whether we implement that, in the first 100 days is something that we'll see coming.
Well, they didn't have the judges because the Democrats didn't want the judges.
Correct. Yes, correct. And that's something, and that's, if them, you want to meet us halfway and we want to talk about what should Trump do in the first 100 days, they say that he should, go after his political opponents just like they did to him. And they were vicious and they were savage to him. And they went after everyone. And in Trump lost, they would come after us. They would come after all of them. You should not go after them. Do not. You want to be the saving grace. You want to be the man who saved the republic or the party that saved the republic or the personnel. You do not prosecute your political opponents when they just try to, because then you set the foundation, you set the tone for moving forward for other generations when you could have absolutely been justified in going after them, and then you don't. And instead, you move forward of reforming the economy, reforming immigration, and trying to resolve these wars. You just do those 3 or 4, you are top 3 peak us party people. Like, that's what we need to focus on. We do not need to target the Democrats. It's a waste of time. It's bullshit. Don't do that. Yes, justified. Yes, they came after. Yes, correct. Very much so. And I know. Yes, I know. But come on, guys, we got to move forward. All right, we got to worry about bigger shit. Don't internal fighting. That's how we dissolve as a country, not externally, but internally. So let's just kumbaya, say, hey, man, not fucking cool. Fuck you guys. Punish few selected ones, the ones who are really manipulating shit, like going, like breaking the law. But just move forward. No presidential prosecution. None of that. Move forward. Let's move the fuck on. That's what I hope.
What do you think Trump coming to town is going to mean for the military? You think there are going to be changes in the military?
Yes. Ideally, we're going to position more domestically. We're going to probably pull back some internationally. But, we've already pretty much seen world peace, it seems like. I love the fact that the Qataris are kicking out members of Hezbollah and Hamas out of their country. And that just seems like a phone call from Trump being like, we're going to withdraw our troops from your country unless you kick these assholes out. And it's amazing how easy leadership can be if it's done the right way.
We have to remember that Mark Esper openly disagreed with Trump on turning the military on civilians. And I think that is our Department of Defense going to go to him and say, sir, that's not a lawful order. We can't do that. And is he going to give lawful orders? And I think it's important that military members know that you don't have to follow a lawful order. There's a due process if you're given an unlawful order. I think you have an obligation to disobey an unlawful order. And a lot of people think, some folks are even conservative, that Trump gave unlawful orders as commander-in-chief.
Yeah. Well, officers have a responsibility to, that, but enlisted don't have as much leeway to make judgments about lawfulness of certain orders, unless it's like clearly like horrible.
True. And so I think having a strong commissioned officer corps in this time, Trump breaks the rules. He's a maverick. And so sometimes Trump doesn't realize he's giving an unlawful order. And one thing I liked about his previous administration, Secretary Mattis, he would say, no, sir, we can't do that. Or Secretary Esper, I'm a little concerned about the top people he has this time not doing that. And I really don't want the public opinion of the military to fall because they're executing all these unlawful orders that the president is giving.
And you're mainly talking about during some kind of immigration push?
I'm talking about U.S. citizens. I'm talking about if civil unrest breaks out, we need to have law enforcement deal with unruly citizens, not the military. There needs to be a distinction between law enforcement and the military. Martial law is the last resort. We want the public loving our military.
I hope we go back to a meritocracy where all the DEI garbage that we're trying to do goes out the window and we actually put people in position. We promote people based on performance and not some Excel spreadsheet that we need a percentage on. But that's not something that's happened in the last 4 years. That's been going on for decades. When I got up into the management level, I saw it. Those who deny that it happens aren't at the management level to see where we pick and choose and promote people based on a demographic spreadsheet. I don't know if that's what you were looking for with that one.
Now, what he has talked about is potentially using the military, using the National Guard to round up immigrants in the United States and eject them from the country. He has mentioned the idea of using the military, using the National Guard to go after his political enemies. These are problems. Those are things that I am certainly worried about. I don't necessarily take Trump literally all the time, but I do take him seriously. That rhetoric is beyond the pale for me.
Make sure that we address our biggest issue, which is the recruitment, because we are hemorrhaging folks and not being able to replace them because the guys coming out are not qualified. They're fat, they're lazy, they're uneducated. And the whole Make America Healthy Again is a national security issue. So I hope we can address that with the military as we continue to posture and pivot to China, to the Southeast Asian area, and hopefully be able to, calm the European and the Middle Eastern part. I think that we got to prepare ourselves for that significant potential conflict. I don't think it's inevitable. I think we still could come to a peaceful resolution and we can explore the stars together. And, I would love to see that, but we need to pivot there. And I think that's where we're going to be going.
I think we need to purge politician generals. Anybody that has outed themselves as highly conservative or highly liberal instead of dedicated to the Constitution needs to go. I would say give them an honorable choice to retire and fall on their sword. And if they start in with shenanigans, prosecute them. I think there's some decisions that have been made that weaken the military and weaken the U.S., some DEI stuff and some policies that just make no sense without getting into the weeds. And it was done for political purposes, not in a thought of this is going to make our military better at engaging the enemy abroad and winning. We need to have all that out in congressional hearings, identify what was done and why and who made the decision, and did it come from the top or was it coming from mid-level bureaucrats or what? But that's the business of the U.S. military is warheads on foreheads and defending our borders. And we haven't been doing that. We've been focused on people's feelings and validating people and just all sorts of insanity instead of the job. And they're wondering why recruitment's low.
I really wonder about that because he didn't like so many of our top tier brass. I think there will be loyalty questions now, whether or not these generals, powers that be in the military, are going to be loyal to his administration. Project 2025 calls for loyalty pledges. And as much as he tried to distance himself from Project 2025 during the campaign trail, I really do think that's the outline of what we're going to be left with for these next 4 years. I think it's the outline for this term. Whether or not it's from him, it's definitely from the Heritage Foundation. I think there will be loyalty pledges, and they're going to have to express fealty to their leader.
Okay. Yeah, well,
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
I don't remember who said it. Your refusal or your denial of casting a vote is not a rebellion. It's a surrender. And I've been talking to these people online and they're like, what good does it do? It's, there's only 13 families who have ever held an office, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, your conspiracies are a little too out there for me, to to some degree. So you can edit this.
I don't vote. I didn't vote.
You should.
I shouldn't. Fuck that.
Well,
I haven't voted
it
in a
is
long
important.
time. I don't want to vote. It's not important. It's stupid. It doesn't fucking matter.
Well, in this situation, I do believe that it does matter because Trump is not a politician. I know he's, comes from big money. He's always been a part of it. I really honestly, I believe in my heart that we can trust him. He has done
no one's
things that no other.
This guy? You fucking believe that?
No, I'm sure that there are people who are controlling him, but not the Soros and not Klaus Schwab and, Yuri Havaldi or Havari or
fight foreign wars that don't help America while also being told that they're a bad person for being white or male or cisgendered or whatever else. Of course, you're going to drive down recruiting. Now, I'm not hating on any particular group. I want everybody to be included in the military, but the military isn't a show and tell where you get to wild out and be yourself. It's where you conform and you follow the rules and you all dress the same and everybody shaves and you get really good and physically fit and you're prepared to fight the enemy. And really, since Obama came into office, we've diverged from that mission and done a lot of silly stuff while our enemies laugh at us.
And the final thing is I hope it gets rid of the FBI completely. I hope the entire FBI, let's see, also, what is it? The ATF. I hope he closes the FBI, the ATF, and even the CIA. There's no reason for them to exist. I hope they're just gone.
Cool. All right.
I'm just praying for our military. No matter who's in office, we know that these are just guys doing their job, who love their country, who maybe want a cheaper path to college. Either way, they're doing a great service for our nation, and I don't want politics to kind of destroy their lives.
Can I ask what you think about females in combat units?
Females in combat units? I mean, how's it worked for Ranger Regiment? We've tried to integrate, but I think from my rudimentary knowledge of it, they've either been RFS'd or had medical issues. Are there any that are even
Nothing wrong with being RFS'd.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. I mean, I'd love to say give it a shot, but it's just that it's the biological thing of can their body frames support the combat load, all of that. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be separate but different, but it would almost have to be because biologically speaking, a female's body can't support a combat load the same way as a biological man's can. And I'm saying that as a Democrat, as a true blue Democrat.
Now, the problem, especially in the classified world, is the security clearances. What he has to do is expedite security clearances for non-DC people. Start handing them out like Halloween candy. All right? Fire these motherfuckers that have been sitting there too long, are inbred, they haven't had a real job in their whole life, and get in some people with some real world experience, some military veterans, some business veterans, people with high educations, technology people that want to make a difference, that are motivated for the mission. Get them in there.
I mean, the Republicans have the red wave right now. We'll see if they actually do hold the House. And if they do, it'll be great because then Trump can just do what he wants to do. The Democrats just need to rebrand. Right now, they're the party of everyone but Americans, right? If you're an American citizen, the Democrats fucking hate you. And it's obvious because they want to increase taxation for American citizens while decreasing taxation for foreign investors and giving American money to foreigners. That'd be number one, is stop caring about foreign powers more than you care about Americans. Number two would be stop being fucking batshit crazy with your science or making up pseudoscience. Women are women, all right? Like, that's all there is to it. That's on the transgender thing.
What they need to do is exactly what Trump did, and that's relate and actually listen to the populace that they lost. They have to acknowledge the reality of what just happened and who shifted sides and not live in whatever their fantasy is and get out there and beat the streets.
We'll see how much they can get done. We overtook the House and the Senate, so, we'll see what we can do. What I'd like to see is term limits, and no more pork in bills. I want that. No more pork. A bill has to be about a bill, and that is it. And now they have the majority in both houses, so there is absolutely no reason why not to pass these things because it doesn't need to be a bipartisan effort, at least for the next 4 years, for crying out loud, or enact
They
it.
don't want term limits And they want pork,
I know.
so why would they do?
Because we, the people, are telling them to no more pork and bills and we want term limits.
They don't care about you. You think these people care about you? They don't know
Now
who
is
you
the
are.
time that we press upon the majority, the party with the majority of the Republicans,
They don't give
and
a
press
fuck.
for these things.
They don't give a fuck
I don't
about
care.
us.
Well,
They just use us until they count the fucking votes, and then they drive off to Washington, or they get on a fucking plane, and they get here, and they start hanging out with the lobbyists, and then it's just, how do I stay here forever? And they'll just do anything.
We didn't deliver. So I think we do need to change leadership. We need new leadership. The question, John, is going to be, what is that going to look like? Because the younger people want further left. I don't know that that's going to be what we need. I think that was part of the issue here, was that we had somebody that was, from California that was running for president. And that doesn't resonate all across the entirety of the United States, and especially here in the southern states. A southern Democrat's not going to look the same as a California Democrat. And, I think that we've got to look for the soul of the party right now, somebody that's...
So I think the Dems lost pretty much because of two things. One is the cancel culture that went overboard, in which that you even had moderate men like myself who would not vote for Trump because, I just agree with his policies. But because if any voice that was critiquing the Harris administration or somewhat sympathizing for the Trump administration, you were labeled as a right-wing extremist, Nazi, Hitler, yada, 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 right off the bat, whether it's either an immigration economy or whatever. So I think, and that showed in the states where Latino men, especially the conservative Latino men and the African-American men, there's still somewhat, and the younger men, like who usually vote Democrat, like overwhelmingly went to the right just because of that, the whole, if you're against, vote blue no matter who, and if you're against that, you're on the side of evil. And it's like, well, that's not okay to do that. And they kind of went a little overboard with that, even though if they meant well, right? Usually it's just unintended consequences on both sides, where it kind of spills over. And then the last one was just the immigration and war, right? Clearly they lost the Palestinian or the Muslim the vote for that because it's just a piss poor management of it. And then the immigration stuff, when you have 8 million immigrants coming over, over 8 years, over 4 years, it's a complete disaster. And it's one thing to have that and say, we're actually working on it, trying to work with Congress. But if you're just talking down to us and saying, hey, you dumb Republican individuals, you dumb men, you dumb people in the middle, like you don't understand what's going on. You don't think it's not this. Things are fine. The economy's fine.
The border is secure. The border is secure.
Yeah, it's talking down, condescending, like you don't know what you're talking about. And it was just like, enough. And so you showed it. It was just like, all right, we get it. No, enough. So if they're going to learn anything, hopefully take some of that Ivy League condescending attitude, shove it up your fucking ass, and realize that everyone is a smart individual and everyone's a smart person. Just because we won't completely agree with your pure logical, hey, this is what my Ivy League Institute says how we should implement DEI policies and the reasons why, your heart's in the right place. We fucking get it, right? But there's unintended consequences to every single policy decision that you have. And it's the fact that you won't even acknowledge the unintended consequences and you talk down to us when we try to bring it up, right? And that's where you need to realize and have a hard look in the mirror and say, maybe not be an asshole to the guys who somewhat disagree with our policies. Maybe address some of the unintended consequences and talk about them. Otherwise, because you're supposed to be the people in charge, you're supposed to be the educated party, you're supposed to be the Ivy League. If you don't do that in a reasonable, pragmatic way, then the other cowboy side's going to come in and say, fuck you guys, you don't know what you're doing, shove it up your ass. You're just...
I think that Elon Musk endorsement was the biggest one of the election. I mean, he really made a difference.
I really do think he made a difference, and he went all in on it too. That's part of it as well, right? It wasn't just like Elon endorsed him and then sort of stepped away. Elon Musk really, really got involved. He spent a ton of money, and he was out there on the ground all the time. And he was using his own cachet with the community of people, are behind him. And he's a little bit of a demigod on his own, right? He's got like a real following. And so he really delivered a lot of voters, I think, for Donald Trump. People are willing to listen to him.
I think the Democrat strategy is they're probably going to take a step back and hold their breath and he's a felon, he's a criminal, he's a liar, we're not going to work with him, he's going to get us in a war, he's going to ruin the economy, everybody in the world hates him. Just the same rhetoric that put them in this position where they're very, very close to losing the House or not having control over the House. They just lost the presidential election in one of the biggest landslides in recent history. They probably need to, one, fire their strategist, and then take a step back and say what worked and what didn't work. The latter category being just about everything. With regards to the Republicans, they need to throw their support behind Trump and do the Hail Mary. Fix the economy, get at least half the world to stop killing each other, deal with China. And I don't think 2026 is going to be a big deal. If the economy's strong in 2 years, it's going to be business as usual.
This is my opinion. Messaging, campaigning to men has to improve. I've been saying it for years. Democratic messaging to men sucks. One of the reasons Trump won is the podcasting space is owned by right-wing men, and the influencer space is owned by right-wing men. You know, the Joe Rogans and Andrew Tates of the world influenced Gen Z men how they voted. And I think the left doesn't even respond, doesn't even address men's issues, doesn't even address men directly. And I think that's a huge problem. And I think over the next few years, it's something that the Democratic Party is going to have to tackle, is substantively addressing men. And men have a unique economic anxiety in this country that is unique to men.
I would say that the Democrats won this election because some very prominent, well-respected Democrats are in power now. You got Elon Musk and Donald Trump and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard are all in the White House now. And they were all Democrats until recently, and their policies are consistent with what they were a decade or two ago. John F. Kennedy is to the right of Donald Trump. The Democrats moved so far left that they left everyone behind. If they want to regain power, they're going to need to come back to the center and start making reasonable choices with policy and tax dollars. If they do that, I think they have a chance to win back some more of the vote. But in the meantime, if they want to talk about transgendering kids and making everything about abortion, I think abortion is a heated subject and it does affect people's decisions, but it's not the number one voting thing. People want to be able to afford chicken to put on the table for their kids. People want to be able to have a decent car and a decent house. Like, there's a whole generation of people who think that they can't own a home because the expense of it is so high.
Democrats really have a lot of soul searching to do. We've got new faces. And look, for anyone who thinks that Gavin Newsom is the next contender, no, please no. That's another California Democrat. That's just not going to work. It works in California, but it's not going to work on the national scale. We need somebody from maybe a southern state or a Midwestern state with some actual just common sense values that can speak to those voters. Voters pay attention to common sense issues. When I ran in a pretty conservative area, and I got within 172 votes out of a 198,000 person district on a message that was just common sense. I'm going to speak to your common sense. We're going to talk about not raising your taxes, but let's not waste time and money on some of these social issues.
I think they actually believe, and that's why they're shocked. How could you be shocked? If you were an independent, actual professional political worker, you're shocked today, then you've been lying to yourself.
In my opinion, there's no world in which she wins unless Trump collapses. Yeah. And what was needed, the thing your party's missing is you don't have a leader, a real fucking leader. And what you needed was someone on that ballot whose last name is Obama. One of them's termed out. Michelle doesn't want to do it, and the girls are too young. There's only 4 Obamas, and you don't have them, right? They'll go to the rallies and they'll clap and do their speeches and shit, but they don't want to play anymore. And you're fucked. Until you find a real Democrat leader that people in the country respect.
That's the issue right there, who they respect. Because Obama, look, I served on the Obama campaign. I was not an Obama supporter initially. When they called to offer me the job, I was not an Obama supporter, but I took that job because I knew it would lead to really great things for me in the future, and it did. But we need somebody like that with star power who can speak across the lines to, just like I said, the common sense of America. Take on the common sense issues. Take on the deficit. Talk about how the national deficit is $241,000 per voter, and how we should work by some sort of bipartisan manner to do something about that.
But at some point, they're going to have some sort of a substantive message other than just their warmongering economic bullshit. It's great because I'm reading a good economic article and it just talks exactly about inflationary economic policies, which are the cornerstone of Democrat economics. And it talks about how they can only destroy the economy. And it's truly terrifying to me because I believe that any politician in DC is running through a game of hot potato right now with the economic crisis that is coming.
Just, I'd like to congratulate my friends across the aisle on a decisive win. Bask in your glory, and we're going to hold you to account for the campaign promises. But, there's no love lost here. I don't blame Americans for what's happened. This is who we are.
I mean, it's 51-49. I mean,
this is who we are. And, democracy worked. Americans had their say.
Most people didn't want to vote for either one of them.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not voting for either one of them. There's no way in hell. I'm not voting for her. I'm not voting for him. Like, that's just not happening. Yeah. And I don't even want to vote at all anyway. But definitely not these people.
But I think Democrats obviously have a great opportunity to win back the House, or to, who knows where it's going to end up, right? We're very close, but it seems like they're not going to have it.
They're going to take it. I mean, they're going to take it back. There's no way they don't take it back. They probably won't get the Senate unless something weird happens, but it's highly likely that they get the House back. And even if the Republicans here fully get the House, they're going to be in a lot better position. They're going to have 2 years to get their shit back together. They're going to get some new candidates. All these geriatric leaders that they've got are going to be gone, and they can rebuild. Right? They're gonna rebuild. They're smart. They've got a ton of money, and they're pissed off, and they want power. Like, they're gonna come back. Like, what other choice do they have? What they bring in 2026 is gonna be tough to beat. The Republicans are gonna have to figure out this new coalition they've got with young people, and which I don't get, and the Hispanics and everything like that. Figure out how to keep it together, because the Democrats are gonna come and try to get their Hispanics back. They're definitely gonna try to get their young people back. A young person is extremely important in politics as a voter, because they vote so many times in their life, right? Like, you got someone who's 80, they might vote in not as many elections, right? I mean, this is obvious. But the person who's 80, if they're the politician, like Biden or whatever, they're powerful because everyone knows their name, they've made all their money, they've got friends, they've got favors to ask, they've got a record. So they're just gonna be a known quantity that are gonna be more successful in American politics.
I'm really looking forward to these next few years, because I think we could not have handled 4 years of Harris. Also, final thought, I wonder what he's going to do to George Soros. I kind of hope George Soros gets and his family get deported too.
Honestly, I think the Republicans suck. They're going to come into town all arrogant as fuck. They're going to say a bunch of arrogant shit. They're going to cock everything up. They're going to do maybe some stuff that's good or whatever, but they're going to cock this up. And all the Democrats need is just that one issue that they can just stick it to them and come back in 26 with some fresh faces and take it back. And then from
the Democrats have to stop taking advice from elitist big city people. They need to start listening to the more working class parts of the traditional base, your working class labor union type, your blue collar people. They're talking about different issues than your liberal elites. And it seems like the Democrats have a hard time breaking away from what liberal elites think that should be the narrative.
The number of friends that called me to see if I was dead because of the news they saw about the hurricanes is exactly what we were seeing with the election. It's the end of time. And and now the second coming of the devil, it's the end of time again, is what we're seeing in the news. I guess I would tell people to do their homework, do their reading. Don't just sit down in front of the TV and watch 15 minutes of the news. That sets your belief structure for the next 4 years. Let's see what happens. Be optimistic, even when I'm not.
Optimistic pessimist. I like it.
Because they very much, I think, immigrants are us. That's who we are as a country. We are immigrants. My family immigrated here. Your family immigrated here. All the people who are listening to this, nearly all of them, their families immigrated here at one point. And when they came, they were not necessarily considered a part of mainstream, American culture. They were on the fringe, right? Over time, we entrenched ourselves, and we helped build this country. And I hate the idea that all of a sudden we are going to turn around and pull up that ladder to the next people behind us.
Do what you say and say what you mean. Everything we ran on. Don't go out and pass some really draconian anti-abortion laws. Don't try to reverse gay marriage or do any crazy social stuff that the people don't want. Stick to the economy. Fix it. Don't have videos of guys in soldiers' apparel with machine guns ripping kids away from their parents and deporting them.
So with the whole election stuff, people put this individuals up on a pedestal. No one's up on a pedestal. No one's God. No one individual can save the country. All right. So just move forward. Things are going to be fine. Never, ever, ever, ever worship a single person. and think they can do it. It's us. It's you. It's me. It's your brother. It's your sister. It's all of us together as a community trying to collectively live together. All right. And so we love you. We care for you no matter where this goes, but we're wishing the best for you. And go Team America. All right.
What I said, you know, I really want us, I don't know how we do it right now, but I want us to turn the page on this. Like, we're not together. We're fighting about everything. And we've got people in elected positions, people on social media networks, people who are intentionally trying to divide. They are feeding off of this like hate and division among us. And most of us have more in common than not in common. And we just have to find a way to get past that. Right now, I'm not sure what that way is, but I think it's so important to us, and it's so important just to moving forward as a unit.
I guess this is the end. Thanks for watching. We're going to keep making news videos, different formats, working on it, building things up, trying to figure things out. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching Real Better News. Goodbye.